Welcome to the Elvis Presley channel. The next generation of kids will know who Elvis is, such is the nature of Elvis's cultural impact on the world. While he had a short life, his impact has continued to transcend time and leave a mark on successive generations. Elvis is, in fact, timeless, but that's not all he is. The hip-thrusting megastar had an undeniable love for the cinema, manifested in various quirky ways. Films were so personal to him that he would rent out a whole cinema to throw himself totally into the fiction. As if that wasn't enough, no matter how difficult his schedule was, Elvis managed to slot in time to watch films. Could it be that it was a secret obsession of his? Was Elvis Presley a bad actor? Make sure to watch the video until the end, and if you're new here, don't forget to join our wonderful community by subscribing to the channel. When Priscilla Presley said it didn't matter whether they knew how to ride or even light horses, you were getting a horse. It opened up a new insight into Elvis Presley's personality and hobbies. Elvis had a generous personality, and it manifested in many ways. One of the more notable ones was how he got the soldiers in his unit TV sets and extra fatigues when he was in the army. Elvis understood that the money they were paid wasn't enough to live comfortably, and he tried to remedy that. That's Elvis for you, always looking out to help people or to give them a share of what he was blessed with. Many times the musical legend has been found asking himself the question, "Why me, Lord?" As a religious man, Elvis would question why he was so blessed with the people he had, his wealth, music, status and fame. His answer to this question was to share, and this included sharing his hobbies. As a sensational superstar, Elvis had quite a lot of hobbies. He loved bike riding, playing or watching football, racquetball and cruising through carnivals. As if all those activities weren't enough, Elvis added horse riding to the list. Reports claim he got into horse riding because of the only woman he married, Priscilla. The interesting part was initially, Elvis was deathly afraid of horses. So Elvis had a farm in Graceland due to his interest in animals, and he owned more than a bunch of them on his 13-acre farmland. He had different bird species, chickens, turkeys, and exotic animals like squirrel monkeys and wallabies. He came about horses as a way to please his then-fiancée Priscilla, who loved horses. The horse he bought was named Domino, and Elvis made sure to keep his distance. One of Elvis's films involved horses, and the horse that carried Elvis during the shooting suddenly sprinted off with Elvis on it. At least that was what Arlene Alexander, Elvis's Graceland stable supervisor, said. The incident reportedly spooked Presley out that he began to see horses as menacing creatures. However, he soon overcame his fear of horses after getting Priscilla the horse. Now Elvis decided he needed his own horse. Domino had allowed him to heal his spirit and fear of horses. He wanted to take the next big step, and to do that, he had decided on one of the grandest of horses, the Golden Palomino or the Golden Horse, if you have a flair for the dramatic. The vibrant superstar was so fixated on getting that horse that he went door to door, visiting horse owners, asking if they had one, and continued until he got one. You might wonder what's all the fuss on a horse. Well, if you saw a Golden Palomino, you would understand Elvis's fixation. That horse looked like a gift from the gods. It has a shiny coat that looks like gold. The pop culture legend named his golden horse the Rising Sun, which is a bit dramatic but fits well into Elvis's showy persona. He then named the Graceland barn House of the Rising Sun afterward. Getting the Golden Horse was the beginning of becoming a horse breeder for Presley. He began to buy other highly rated horses too. The notable ones among the horses he owned are Thundercloud, Lady, Buckshot, Lady Sundown, and Memphis. What began as a hobby got so big that the king had to buy more acres of land that totaled 160 acres in 1967, according to the Memphis magazine. He named the expanded ranch the Circle G Ranch. The ranch would hold about 40 horses with state-of-the-art equipment needed to make sure the horses were healthy. Elvis wasn't about just getting the horses as a status symbol. He was committed, and he ensured that he spent time on the ranch. How Elvis manages to do this despite his schedule is nothing short of miraculous. He would ride the horses, riding them, and when he was with them, the burden of stardom became easier to carry. Out of all the horses, his prize horse, the Rising Sun, enjoyed a larger part of his attention. It was his favourite horse, and reports claim he took care of the horse himself. Elvis was gentle towards his animals, which reflects his gentle personality. Priscilla would mention how Presley ensured the horse got a large amount of time for cool-downs. It's interesting how, from laughing at Priscilla for being so small when they met in Germany, the beautiful lady would end up helping Elvis get over his phobia for horses and have a large ranch. Elvis would later sell the ranch in 1969, and his prized horse, Rising Sun, would die in 1986. However, not only did the Circle G ranch continue to operate, it always had a golden horse in the barn as a tribute to the Rising Sun and his master, Superstar Presley. Although not precisely a hobby, his manager Tom Parker made sure of that. Elvis loved to act, and he featured in a number of films. Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis Presley's manager, did great work managing Elvis. He helped give the world an incredible superstar, but Tom may be a villain in some ways. He didn't let the world see other sides of the sensational, sensual, hip-gyrating master. We understand that he wanted to look out for the best interest of his client, but he would have done Elvis more good if he toned it down a bit. The Colonel didn't let Elvis partake in the first iteration of the movie A Star is Born in 1976. His excuse? Elvis wouldn't get a lead role, which wasn't befitting for a star of Presley's calibre. While the Colonel may have been right, he didn't let Elvis challenge himself and truly improve his acting skills. The truth is, not all the films Elvis partook in were the best. The acting in some of those films, yikes. Anyway, A Star is Born would become an iconic film that would get a remake decades later. In the remake, icon Lady Gaga and superstar actor Bradley Cooper would feature. Elvis didn't like mediocrity, and he had favourites among the films he had acted in. He loved King Creole, which was released in 1958. The film delayed his induction into the military when he was drafted. He even sang the film's song. However, he hated Clambake, which was released in 1957. Well, the film was truly weird. So Clambake is a musical that Arthur H. Nadel directed, and it had Presley playing one of the lead roles, as he featured alongside Bill Bixby and Shelley Fabares. The film revolved around three people, Elvis's, Shelley's and Bixby's characters. It had some questionable moments of weird direction. In the film, Elvis's character, who was a rich man disguised as a regular water ski instructor. As an instructor, he meets and falls in love with a woman, Diane, who is taking on water ski courses to impress a rich playboy, James J. Jameson. Along the line, Presley's character, Scott Hayward, starts to fall for Diane, who was fixated on the playboy. This led to a love triangle, with Scott and Jameson having different competitions, but in the end Presley's character won Diane's affection. After all, Diane didn't care if Scott wasn't rich or not, so Scott proposed, bringing out an expensive ring, which Diane asked him to return until he revealed to Diane he was rich. Then, as the revelation was made, Diane passed out. That part of the film is not director Arthur H. Nadel's finest moment as a director. The film got an impressive 20% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 5.7 out of 10 on IMDb. However, more of Presley's films would follow the pattern of him being a rich guy finding music, love, or both. As we said, he didn't truly grow as an actor. However, having a loyal fan base worked in his favour, as it meant his films would make money despite being distasteful at times. Elvis's foray into acting increased his standing as an all-round pop culture legend, but acting isn't just something he felt he should do, but something he wanted to do. Elvis did want more for himself when it came to acting, and wanted to be like the movie greats of the time. He pictured himself reaching the heights of James Dean and Marlon Brando, although he can't be considered as reaching legendary levels of acting from his debut in Love Me Tender. Elvis went on to feature in many films that his fans loved and still love. His desire to act was born from a part of Elvis only his then-wife Priscilla understood most. His desire to act comes from his strong love of cinema. Yes, the hip-thrusting manly man loved going to the movies. Unfortunately, Elvis, even as much as he tried to act as if he was just a regular guy, couldn't enjoy this hobby in peace. The hound dog singer was hounded by a pack of fans who went berserk any time they saw him. While his X Factor helped him sell many records, it didn't let him do much else unless he took somewhat extreme stances. For this cinema-visiting hobby, what he did was to hire cinemas out late at night, and he did this regularly. However, he did go with his entourage, of course. So with this style, Elvis could see many films, but the films Elvis truly loved were the classics, which at the time were masterpieces. According to Priscilla, the legend loved legendary films like Frank Capra's It's a Wonderful World, which got out in 1946, and Max Ophuls' 1948's Letter from an Unknown Woman. That's not all. Priscilla mentioned other films like Richard Boleslawski's Les Miserables from 1935, George Seaton's Miracle on 34th Street, released in 1947, and Mr. Skeffington in 1944 by Vincent Sherman. Out of all these films, there was one which spoke to Elvis the most, the one he and Priscilla watched that made him and Priscilla cry themselves to sleep. That film, that masterpiece, was the 1940 Louis King's The Way of All Flesh, which, according to the American Film Institute, was a remake of a silent film that Victor Fleming directed. Victor Fleming himself, as a directorial genius, having directed and won Academy Awards for Gone with the Wind and The Wizard of Oz. On The Way of the Flesh, Priscilla recalled, "We cried ourselves to sleep over The Way of All Flesh, which concerns a banker who plans to carry a large sum of money out of state, only to discover upon awakening the following morning that he has been robbed. Stripped of everything, he takes to the streets, surviving among the derelicts, an outcast. Years later, one Christmas night, he wanders into his hometown and peers through the window to see his wife and children, now grown, opening their presents." Priscilla would go on to reveal the finale that got her and her then-husband shaking with tears, along with a shocking revelation. Sensing his presence but never recognizing him, his wife takes pity on the lonely old man and invites him in to share the evening with her family. He declines, heading down the snowy street alone. Elvis identified so thoroughly with the story that he toyed with the idea of a remake. He intended to cast Vernon in the lead role. Elvis wanted some of his stardom to rub off on his dad. However, this dream of making his dad an actor didn't materialize. Due to Priscilla's revelation, everyone remembered The Way of All Flesh, which, unlike the other classics, had become forgotten. Other classics had inspired a coming generation of filmmakers, but perhaps Priscilla's revelation would be enough to inspire a remake of the film. Elvis wasn't all about films, horses, bike rides and football, though. He was also an avid reader, and he had a whole library full of books in his Graceland home. Some say his book collection is as wide as his record collection. Although as a man of faith his favourite book could have been the Bible, specifically the King of Kings Bible, as he owned different versions of the Bible. Some of these Bibles he bought, others he was gifted. Some fans showed appreciation for how Elvis made people happy with his music by giving him Bibles. One of his Australian fan clubs sent him a New Chain Reference Bible bearing the stamp, "To Elvis with fondest wishes from your Australian fans." Still, his King of Kings version enjoyed his attention the most, as he scribbled within it, left notes within it, and interestingly the scribbles and notes he directed to himself. Besides the Bible, Elvis had other religious texts in his vast library. He had Thomas Troward's Bible Mystery and Bible Meaning, Zona Bayes Marshall's Certain Women, a Study of Biblical Women, The Impersonal Life by Joseph Benner. As is the norm with his hobbies and likes, Elvis made sure that the people around him got copies of these books. But Elvis wasn't just about religious texts. No, he wasn't. His interests extended to the political, but Elvis never truly declared his political leanings. Well, except for that one time Elvis declared his support for Adlai Stevenson, the Democratic nominee, who lost to Eisenhower, and by extension Nixon, Eisenhower's running mate. His support for Stevenson is not a surprise, considering Presley's gyrating hips pummeled everything conservative in the face, As the face of rebellion against the norm, supporting a Democrat isn't out of character. Presley's political books consisted of books on Winston Churchill, Eugene Lyons, the Kennedy family, US presidents, and American history. Also, the legendary artiste loved reading historical biographies. As someone with a robust career like Elvis's, it's normal to wonder how he gets the time to read books. Book reading needs time, and for an artiste like Elvis, time is a luxury. There are recording schedules, tours, and every other events, but despite this, Elvis made time for his passions. He found time by taking his books with him when he was going on tours, scribbling and underlining away. His books, especially his favourite ones, always show signs of being heavily used, and they were well worn and well loved. Presley led a robust life, and if not for his untimely death, the world would have had more of him. However, through each and every one of Elvis's fans and legacies, Presley's body may be no more, but his vibrant soul still lingers. Whether Elvis Presley was a good or bad actor is a moot point, but one thing is not in question. Why was Elvis Presley's signature dance revolutionary? Let's find out from this video.